Good morning and welcome to Daily Devotions with Pastor Joe. I'm Pastor Joe, and for this morning's devotional, we're getting back into the Sermon on the Mount. I had actually prepared to do this at another time, another week, and as I was trying to go over it, I just felt very checked that God wanted me to take a little time to talk to some people, to take a little time to consider a little deeply and really get the best wording I can for what this passage has to say. Now, really, if we were being 100% honest, verses 27 through 37 all can tie together very well to pull a very complete and cohesive package and miniature sermon, if it were, within Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Beginning, as we had spoken last time we were here, on lust, how anyone who lusts in their heart has already committed adultery, and that does damage to you, and that it would be better for you to cut off a part of your body and lose it than to lose your soul in hell. But the idea of lust in the heart, continuing on from there, he's talking about divorce. And in the very beginning of the Bible, it says that God made them male and female, and that he made Adam and Eve, and made them a couple, made them to be together. And right at the beginning here of this passage, Jesus says, "It hath been said," once again looking back to old time, to the Pharisees, Sadducees, and those who were the teachers of the law, "Whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement." Or in other words, give her a paper saying that it's finalized and she's permitted to move on to another, that she's no longer your property, is basically the way it was looked at. But Jesus said that's completely on its head. It's not the way it was intended. He says in verse 32, "But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery." And then it goes on into Jesus talking about oaths and making promises, and we'll go into that in a moment. But basically, because of this one passage here, there are a major amount of different denominations all split over this one opinion of the matter. And so there are those who believe that Jesus is saying here that for fornication before marriage, you can call off a marriage. Well, that term fornication is an umbrella term for all sin, all sexual sin and immorality, so that doesn't really fit. It doesn't specifically and only talk about before marriage sexual sin, so that doesn't fit. There's others who believe that this passage will allow you to divorce if you're the innocent party, and that's it. And you're able to divorce if there's an adulterous relationship, although why would you, is the idea. And then there's the third, which says that if your spouse commits adultery against you, sexual immorality against you, then in that case, it's okay to divorce and remarry, to have that writing of divorcement, thus clearing and annulling the entire relationship from that moment forward for the person who's innocent. Yeah, so there's a few different stages of opinion there. Personally, as I look at it, I can clearly see that Jesus says if your spouse commits adultery against you, then he would grudgingly, I would say, permit divorce. I don't necessarily see that he permits remarriage after that, but that's neither here nor there for my personal point of view. I don't ever plan on having a divorce, much less having the risk of having this struggle of whether I should get remarried or not. I never plan on that. Now, for myself personally, I will say this. From what I've seen of the way God deals with sin and sins of our former life, there are times where God says to clean up that act and clean up all of the bad things that you've done. But in most cases, let's put it this way, if you were a drug addict or a drunk all of your life, and it caused serious damage to your body. Well, God isn't saying in order to be saved you must restore your physical well-being. He says, here is what you've become as a result of your sin. Now I'm going to save you. You will sin no more, but your body will still retain those marks, and you'll live from here forward. Perhaps some of that could have been partially what Paul was facing. The blindness he received during the Damascus Road experience may have affected his eyes and caused a problem thereafter that he had to struggle with, that thorn in the flesh. That's what many will commonly cite as their opinion of what happened to him. And so in that respect, if you are somebody who has been divorced and remarried, and then you've come to the Lord, then I believe at that point God says, okay, I don't want you to commit a further divorce or leave your spouse in order to correct, so to speak, what's going on. But now that you're remarried, you don't divorce again. You understand, because at that point, you're married to this new spouse, even if it was under wrongful terms to begin with because of the divorce. Well, then I believe that God wants you to continue living from that moment forward and to throw the D word out of your life and out of your vocabulary going forward. Now, that's my opinion on that matter. If God speaks to you otherwise personally, then that's between you and the Lord. I don't see a necessary clear indication of anything else besides the fact that God would take you where you're at and you would live with the results of sin, because getting married is the sin, the action of sin, not staying married at that point. You understand? And so here we see just a very simple teaching. He's saying you can't just get a divorce whenever you want, leave your spouse, marry and divorce. We live in a society that, and this was many years back, that the statistics said that 1 in 4 first marriages ended in divorce and 1 in 2 total marriages ended in divorce, which basically meant that most second marriages, almost all second marriages, ended in divorce, and quite a few of the thirds as well. And so that's a pretty hefty and a pretty steep number to think about, that 1 out of 4, but when you really consider it, it's probably a lot worse than that today. And on top of that, we have people trying to live outside of wedlock without ever having a proper marriage, without properly binding their lives together before the Lord and making that commitment and that promise. God expects us as couples to make a commitment and a promise, and once that promise is made, from that moment forward as life, we stay that way. And that brings us into verse 33, where Jesus says, again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. Or in other words, you will not make a promise and break it. If you've made a promise to the Lord, you are to keep it. Under all circumstances, there should never be time to break it. And he's saying, sort of, well, while that could be considered true, he says in verse 34, but I say unto you, swear not at all. Don't try to make a promise or a deal or a pact with God, because God doesn't want to make a promise or a deal or a pact with you. He wants to simply tell you, do this. You say yes. He wants to have you come to him and say, this is what I would like, and he will give you a yes or a no. There's not a, well, if you do this, then maybe I'll be a nice father to you. God doesn't work that way. He's a perfect father. He's a loving father who's always there to give us the things that are good for us. Doesn't mean all the things that are fun, doesn't mean all of the things that are pleasant and that we would like, but the things that are good for us. Kind of like making the kids eat asparagus, broccoli, or cauliflower. It's something that they may not like, but it's very good for them and good for them in the long run. Verse 35, he says then, okay, so 34 again, swear not at all, neither by heaven, don't swear by heaven, swearing by the Bible that you'll keep it, swearing by God that you'll keep it, swearing by heaven that you'll keep it. That's not the way to do it. Don't ever make a promise with anybody, much less and especially not a promise with God. For heaven is his throne, is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool. You don't own the earth to lay up as a a piece of property against your promise. Neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King, capitalized there for Jesus. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. Or as other versions have put it, they've put it another way, but you can't make one hair white or black. You can't force your hair to permanently change colors. Yes, you can use dye, which sort of defeats the purpose. It's not actually changing the root of things, though. You can't change the color of your hair. If you're a blonde, you can't become a brunette just by whim and by will. You could fake it by covering it with a color, but you can't make it actually change just its appearance. And he says, but let your communication, instead of all that, don't make promises, but instead let your communication be yea, yea, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I want to go that way. Yes, I'll go with you. Yes, I'll do this thing. Or nay, nay, no, I can't do that. No, I don't have the time. No, I'm not going to be able to accomplish that for you. No, I won't. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. You're going to cause yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of issues in life, just plain and simple, by trying to make promises that you can't keep. And that's basically what he's saying. When you begin to go beyond just your word, saying, yes, I'll do it, no, I won't, then you're going to cause yourself a lot of trouble. And on top of that, Jesus said at another point, we should be saying, if the Lord allows, tomorrow I will do this thing. So even then, when somebody says, will you go with me tomorrow on this trip, you should say, if you're absolutely sure, yeah, no doubt, you should say, yeah, as long as the Lord allows it, I'll go with you. If you're not sure if you'd like to go, be clear about that. Just be honest in your communication. Don't try to shade it. Don't try to pretend or try to impress somebody or try not to hurt their feelings by being just a little kinder in your speech. No, because that's going to cause a lot more trouble than good. And in that same respect, in your marriage, wherever you are in your marriage right now, make that promise that you've committed a solid yes. Yes, I will stay with this person, and through sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, no matter what we face, this person's my spouse. I'm sticking with them for life. Make that true in your life today. Don't go and be like the Pharisees and consider that you can just write a piece of paper and write off what God has put together. As Jesus said to one other, he said, in the beginning made he male and female, and they two shall cleave together and become one, and one flesh. And so when you become married, you're one person now together. It's a very interesting thought. And what God has put together, let no man put asunder, let no man break or tear apart. So just remember that as you're going through your life, that making a commitment to marriage or making any promises is very serious. So be very careful when you make those promises. Do your best to use just simple yes and no answers and be clear in your communication with one another. And if you are married, even if it's your second or third marriage, stop. Don't go on. Don't go to another divorce. Don't go to try and find somebody else. Remember that this person is your spouse for life. Stick with them. So, all right, that's what we've got here in this passage on divorce, remarriage, and oaths. The sermon series will be catching up to it very soon, so we'll see if that ends up overtaking it. If the Lord puts it that way, we'll see. But God bless. I hope you have a wonderful day in the Lord. Take care of yourselves. Be encouraged in the Lord. He is a fantastic friend that sticks closer than a brother. He is the one and only person on the face of this earth who's ever walked the face of this earth, who loves you so much he was willing to give his life for you, give all of heaven up for you for a period of time. He is the only one who can save you, who can sanctify you, who can make you whole inside and out. And just put your trust in him today. Draw close to him as the day goes on. And I'll see you later on another daily devotion with Pastor Joe. God bless. I love you guys. Keep strong in the Lord.